Hey, welcome back. It's Christine again with the Artist Pod, and today we'll be talking about how to draw a black-eyed tree frog. As always, I'm using a Wacom Intuos Pro tablet, and I'm drawing straight into Photoshop. So, let's get arting. Alright, so here is the black-eyed tree frog. The only thing I don't know yet is exactly how the eyes are going to work, since obviously they're black-eyed and the edge of the frog doesn't cover it. Unlike most drawings where I start with sort of this secondary sketch layer with the colors, I'm not going to do that with this one. I think it's simple enough that I'm just going to go ahead and add the shadows and highlights. I'm going to have the light source coming from above and to the right. As always, it's above and in front of, not behind or next to. Now the frogs have a lot of texture, so as I'm drawing, I'm going to be doing a lot of like up-down kind of motions, right? So this kind of action going on there. I'm actually going to back out because that isn't necessarily where I want it. First, we're going to talk about the shadows, right? So even though the light source is coming from above and to the right, all edges are in shadow, and the eyes are significant enough they would be casting a shadow. So very lightly going to be doing that same kind of pattern over here. There's like white underneath, so trying to keep in mind where I think that white and green might run into each other. So we'll do it right through there. Right, their faces though can be relatively flat-ish. I mean, there's, the point forward with the nose and then it recedes a bit, so you're gonna have some shadowing through here, but most everything else outside of like right down by the mouth is gonna be in highlight. Again, except the edges, right? So you can see how I'm alternating my strokes. This, of course, would go all the way across because this is the mouth. So the mouth will dip in, as they do with all animals, and inevitably there needs to be some shadowing there. It's actually a bit helpful that there's a color change there. Usually I don't like to do that, but that will help to indicate that there's a distinct mouth. Although highlights and shadows should do that perfectly well, a color change might help too. Right. And I'll be taking off the layer once I get to the point where I'm refining, right? Because even though I chose purple, always use a purple so it's out of the way, I'm still going to want to refine it without the purple in the way because I can't see everything with it. The frogs are kind of funny, and I have opted to just draw its head. They have kind of this elongated head, right? And then two kind of big circles where their eyes are. Makes for an interesting composition. And then again, all edges in shadow, so up the side of his head here, all the way to the edge of his eye. We have the edge of his eye in shadow. It's okay if it's a little bumpy because it would be. And then you have kind of, right, like it's tipping away a little bit from the light source on this back side, so I'm going to expand that out to indicate that it's coming down. Not a lot, but a little bit, because it would still be getting some light. Now above and to the right means there will be some shadowing underneath. Right, and if it's above and to the right, depending on the angle, changes exactly where that shadowing would be. I'm going to have that coming down just a little bit, but not too far. Right. And then likewise over here, we're going to have that same kind of shadowing. Right, this is turned away. This is the side that's turned away. And then it goes into highlight as it rounds over the top of the eye. Although there probably would be just a little bit of shadowing as it bends down to the eye and connects in. So I'm going to do that. Same thing over here, right? Especially on this side. Probably dips in a bit. But still being somewhat careful around the eye, because eyes are the first thing we look at. Some forgiveness with a frog, because, you know, again, they have a lot of bumps, so. And then we're going to have some shadowing, just a little bit of extra through here. Not much, just about that much, actually. And then, of course, the full head, because it dips down over there, right? And I might be filling this in more later as well. For now, though, this will work. And then we'll apply, once I get the shadows in, we'll just start in with the highlights. All right. Now we have the nostrils. So you have this point forward, and then what's going to be kind of this angle off of that, where it's going to get a little bit of shadowing as it kind of comes down on this side. Right, so this isn't full pin pressure, that's how I'm doing it. I am doing that same pattern, but with backed off pin pressure. Right, and just sort of expanding that down as it would potentially run into this corner. And we're probably going to readjust some of this once, you know, once I get all of it kind of done. And I'm doing the same for the wrinkles here in the eye. I have that little bit of wrinkling. All right. Now, everything else should be highlight, so that's going to be the same pattern, but full pin pressure. Let's see what a difference that makes. And it's just this quick kind of pattern. As I get to areas where I've added shadow, I'm going to back off my pin pressure again, but adding more lines creates the same effect as adding more pin pressure, right? So I can still brighten it, but I can brighten it and make sure that I'm not creating too much of a jarring transition. All right, so I'm going to finish out, oh, one other thing I am going to do, you know, this is an edge as well, so I'm going to go ahead and just follow this down. Not much, but, you know, just enough to indicate. Okay, so I'm going to finish the rest of this out in highlight, and I will be right back. There's the first part. Second part is in white. I'm going to do a little bit more of a creamy white instead of my usual white. And their underbellies are smoother. So instead of this back and forth that we're doing to add the texture up in here, it's going to be just sort of smoother lines. So I'm going to come straight down from this midpoint here on the chin. And we'll be adding some highlight, but I'm going to do the whole thing in kind of a shadow first. And then I'll re-angle it as we come off either side, right? You can see I'm changing that angle as we move over, adding it all in shadow. This will be easier to draw it in instead of coming straight down the whole way, but it'll also avoid line conflicts that you get if I try to go one way or another. and just allow it to kind of loop in both cases. So one way for one side, and here the other way for the other side. Same idea though, still looping it. And filling it, you know, fully in. So by the time we get over here, it's nice and looped over. And then over here the opposite. Right, so pretty straightforward. I'm going to fill in his entire chin, and I'll be right back. Now, I'm going to add a little bit of highlighting. Right, so it's going to be kind of here in the middle, because their faces aren't as flat as I would like to think they are. They have a little bit more, or I guess their faces are more flat than you think they are. So they're catching more of the light than you would realize. But again, I've already drawn lines here, so I don't have to do a whole lot of pin pressure to brighten it up. It's just a matter of drawing the lines kind of in the middle, leaving a gap at the bottom and the top where the mouth is coming, meeting in the middle, and just brightening it up, making a very clear delineation. Narrows out so much here though. Doesn't give a ton of room to work with. And I can keep building this up if I need to, right? If I think this needs to be brighter, I can keep building it up, adding more and more lines, brightening it up and up and up, without having to put a ton of pin pressure to do it. See how much a difference that makes, even coming through a second swipe. It's a pretty significant difference. All right, and then continuing through on the other side as well. Same thing. So I'm going to finish up this left side. Being mindful of where the shadow cuts across, right? Like, so I have the shadow kind of here, so I really would limit my highlighting to be in the same vicinity that the highlighting on the top of the head is. Otherwise it'll look wrong. Right, and so then I'll fade it out. Right, we're coming over here, so I'll back that off. I was going to be right back, but I guess I can just do it and talk about it instead. Right. And give it a little bit of extra, yeah. There you go, our little frog friend here. Making underneath nice and even. It's not horrible, but, and it's in shadow, so it's not surprising, but just sort of evening that up. All right. Now, I'm actually going to add more green to a few spots. To brighten it up in some places, smooth it out in others, so it's just, you know, here smoothing it out, still kind of doing those strokes back and forth, and then through here brightening it up. So that, again, that's that full pin pressure. I could probably even do straight strokes through here because I've already done the bigger, you know, the bigger sort of sweeping strokes. Bring that down. Be nice and bright on the nose where it would be. You know, you would have a lot of highlighting through here. nose tip. And on up in here. So just filling in a lot of those gaps. And up in here. Be a little bit more haphazard about it, because I'm just adding, you know, more lines and not having to necessarily do the swoops, but I am a little bit. So even though I said you don't have to, I am still kind of doing it a little bit. Right, and blending it in. Now, I know that I need to really clean the eyes. Maybe a little bit. Make them seem a little bit more straight edge than how I did them. Okay. Taper off this shadow a little bit. It seems particularly dark. I don't know that this would be all, but so much. Brighten it up just a wee bit until that eye would be blocking it out. Likewise over here, right, how dark a shadow is how, you know, big either a dip or, you know, if you have something blocking the light is. So I can taper that out a bit to make it less extreme, but still have the shadow in place. All right, now I'm gonna add some white, but I think, yeah, I was about to say I hit something that made it go fully white. All right, so now adding a bit of white to add like a highlight, right? The frogs are wet or slimier. So adding some white can do a lot to give it that indication that there's like a big extreme highlight somewhere on it. Right, so we'll do that kind of through here onto the tip and then having it spread out. I don't have to put a whole lot of pin pressure for this. Because of the nature of it. And it's easy to fade out, right? That catch a little. Maybe over here a little. And if I decide it's too much, I can always ditch it. Yeah, I actually think that adds a nice bit. Now, now to add the light flare on the eyes, since we're not adding much else to the eyes. I'll give us a chance on this side to kind of indicate where the eye is, but not so much on this side, because that light source is above and to the right. I'm going to do kind of a little bit of a teardrop look. And then fill it with the foreground color, which I've already changed the white. What I'm going to do is leave this intact and drag you over so I get the same size. Yeah, there we go. A black-eyed tree frog, and we can, you know, adjust as needed. If I don't think they're quite in the right spot, I can always shift and change. And since one of them you know, is over here where there would potentially be frog eye blocking it, I could do a little bit of blockage happening, where that eye would make it smaller, and clearly there's something blocking it over here in the way. Makes it a little bit more, I can make it more realistic. I'll do it often when there's like fur as well. So yeah. Alright, so that's how you draw a frog. I hope that's helpful. In the floating nether next to me, there are other videos of art tutorials I have done, and I will see you all soon. Thank you so much. Take care.